When it's time to fly to Hawaii, it's time to fly a big wide-body jet. And not just any jet, but United's Polaris business class. Polaris is of course a branding for the radical overhaul United has gone through over the past few years in business class, sharpening the airline's premium products on the longest of routes, and that means upping the ante with flatbeds and premium meals. It's normally used for their international flights and a few transcontinental medium hauls, but if you hunt it out, it's also available to Honolulu. A joy, as normally flying domestic around America means a very dated first experience, which has got nothing first class about it. That's why I'm at San Francisco, and after an hour getting through security, I wanted to see what had happened to the United domestic business class lounges in the city by the bay. Now, if I was on an international flight, I could access the new Polaris lounges. However, on a domestic to Honolulu, I'm stuck with the older United Club, only available with membership or with a Star Alliance Gold Card. Well, here I am in the San Francisco United Airlines United Club at Terminal 3 Concourse F. It's the oldie and the biggie. 20 years ago, I thought this lounge was, well, really quite quaint. A bit of a throwback, but down at heel. Sadly, it's still there, exactly the same, just much more worn, after another couple of decades of use. It even has the same ship models. It's like flying used to be, with lots of old wood panelling, old leather armchairs, and a small snack bar. It's very old, quite large, and yet with minimal facilities. It hasn't improved over the years, and the only major change is the cook-to-order hot meals have been enhanced out of existence thanks to most passengers internationally using the new Polaris lounges. In domestic, however, you're stuck here. There's a lovely entrance foyer with lots of space, a large clock, and lots of models of fishing boats. That's by far the best part of the lounge. The bar staff, on seeing my disappointment, told me there was a joy this week of Corona on promotion. Now they've reopened after the Corona pandemic, and indeed, with just a dose of Corona for $3, you could win either a pair of glasses, a hat, or even a donkey. I won 2 out of 3 with just one bottle. Now, taking my healthy dose of Corona, I found a fine view over the domestic gates and runways to the Frisco Hills in the distance. There are plenty more comfortable squashy armchairs all the way around to the small snack bar, but food is ever more basic, with just a salad bar, dipping sauces, cubes of cheese, wraps, and either cheese sandwiches or aubergine sandwiches. I think the bar's actually the highlight of the lounge and one way of getting through the experience. Along with that is looking at all the ship models. Now, if you enjoy appreciating the skills of modelers who really know how to screw small boats together, you're in exactly the right place. However, after about 5 minutes, this kind of lacked appeal, and seeking more entertainment, I went in search of the bright lights of Concourse G. This used to be the closed international concourse that you couldn't get to from domestic, but now with the advent of Polaris, there's been the closure of the old first class lounge in the international wing, and it's reopened as a United Club that you can access on domestic. Unfortunately, it's a faded jewel which has been hastily enhanced to a United Club lounge. Gone are the premium food and alcohol selection, gone are the shower suites, gone is the slumber room, and indeed all that's left is a, well, admittedly rather large and impressive lounge without many facilities. There's a small pop-up bar with basic house wines and beer being free of charge. Other spirits and nicer wines are sold at, well, the usual airport prices. Indeed, the fancy first-class dining has gone, to be replaced by exactly the same sandwiches as I'd seen in the older F concourse. I wasn't actually all that hungry as I'd arrived after 5 hours on a plane from Chicago, in first class no less. Alas, United First Class, and on the usual domestic hops it really isn't that special. Indeed, it's a little bit surprising you get fed at all, but after one of United's cheeseburgers, you'd wish you hadn't. It's a terrible product, with first-class recliners out of the 1970s and food that might have come that way as well. At least the beer is free, which is a blessing, as it's one way of getting through the experience. Polaris, therefore, is offering a step up. At least I hope it is. I'm waiting to see what's on board. Now, United do have a new lounge on offer on the San Francisco block. Earlier, when I stepped off my Chicago plane before a brief tour to look at the sea lions, I went to look at the Concourse E Lounge. Now, this is United's brand new lounge and shows what can be done when you start from scratch. You dramatically reduce the amount of space, fill it full of chairs, and stick with exactly the same design as came from a furniture warehouse in the 1980s that you started off with. There's a lot of beige. Food is pretty much identical, with the same aubergine sandwiches, the same salad bar, but spot this, it's got biscuits. The lounge is also really packed, really packed, as this is one of the most convenient lounges for most of the domestic flights. I think I've done enough tours of lounges now. It's time to make a bit of a run and get on board an aircraft, and hopefully the new Polaris cabin. And there we have it, the Polaris. Not the name of the British naval thermonuclear missile, it's instead a fantastic seat with a fully lie-flat bed of just over 2 meters, or longer than 6 foot if you prefer old money. Every passenger has direct aisle access. The cabin is a British design with a Polaris seat based on the proprietary Viva design from Acumen Design Associates in London. This was developed and styled further for United by the UK's Priestman Good. And the best of British has turned out an excellent job. The design's a little unusual, with a combination of straight forward facing and rows at a slight angle, interleaved to allow your feet to wedge into the cocktail tray of the seat in front. Indeed, the Polaris pods are also suite-like, with room to work, dine and enjoy the first cocktail of the day. At my seat, the crew offered me a welcome glass of sparking wine. Now, I didn't know if they were offering me an electrical brew, however, the Polaris branding clearly stopped at that point, and I was instead offered a half-full plastic cup of a foul concoction that left its life as a great many years ago, and it had a distinct whiff of lack of quality.
Probably about 10 to 15 miles per hour. And we'll talk to you once we get airborne. Glad you came with us. Talk to you soon.
There's a nice looking wall lamp in the seat, which wouldn't be out of place in Priestman Good's home base of Fitzrovia. Now, each seat has a 16-inch high-definition video screen which can be used on a gate-to-gate basis, and a clever tablet holder in the tray table. There's a decent stowage compartment beside the seat, which contains the headphones. Rare delights that you wouldn't normally get on other domestic flights include an amenity kit with eye shades and a toothbrush. Now, I've deliberately chosen the new Boeing 777-300 Extended Range or ER version, which flies this route, as opposed to the 777-200 version. Both are wide bodies. They look very similar, but the 300ER has Polaris, as opposed to the 200 version, which has United's old style of business class seats with 4 recliners, all facing each other over a wide aisle. I've been on one of those 20 years ago across the Pacific, and it had kind of put me off the United experience for life. Here those enormous General Electric GE90 turbofan engines spool up as we hurtle down the runway. With an early evening departure and no hope of pre-flight dining thanks to the sheer lack of anything significantly edible in the United clubs, a decent supper was paramount for each United Polaris customer. Now, when Polaris was launched, United proudly announced it was moving up several notches to be almost on a par with other international airlines, with seasonal menus including uniquely regional touches developed in partnership with the Trotter Project and its chefs such as Bill Kim of acclaimed Chicago restaurant The Belly Shack. Who knows what will be the culinary delights served up to wow the party crowd on the evening flight to Hawaii, also known as Ibiza on a volcano. Well, I can't tell you what they were, because even the crew didn't even know. There were no menus loaded, and the crew had to guess by reading the labels and introduce themselves to each passenger with the cheery words of chicken, meat, or skip the meal, which was a little bit more Jetstar than United. I went for the meat, which was served with rice and broccoli. It was, to my surprise, actually quite good. There was a drizzle of what seemed like some cherry-flavoured dressing over, well, rather unnamed meat. I think it might have been beef, but if it was beef, it was unlike most beef I've ever had on United before because it was soft, tender, and with extra added flavour. I washed it down with a glass of the Chardonnay. Seeing my surprise at its potent acidity, which threatened to eat its way through the glass, the crew joked that, as an Australian, I'd probably never tasted decent wine before. I was rather bemused as he explained that his knowledge of Australian wine was down to one Australian vineyard which dominates American off-licenses and which is decidedly cut price, as indeed was this Chardonnay. Now, on the side of the salad was a dry coleslaw salad with green beans. There was also a hot roll with a rare delight of butter. For dessert, again without a menu, it was difficult to be precise, but I believe it was a raspberry sponge cake. Again, I really wish I could know what it was, but it surprised me by actually delighting me. My expectations were set artificially low by my experience of catering on United before. Now, to round off my experience of United Polaris, I tried one of their regional selection of beers with the Hawaiian Kona Longboard Island Lager. It's a crisp, pale gold lager made from some pretty good aromatic hops. I didn't have much time to enjoy it though, as Hawaii appeared through the windows. The cabin was certainly in a party mood. It seemed as if every person on this flight, which was on a Friday afternoon, was off to the islands on holiday. Needless to say, there was a lot of drinking. Now, airport gates at United States airports provide some excellent sport because all the major US airlines play a fun game called Getting Upgraded at the Gate. In the US, if there's space up front, airlines like United will upgrade you and publish the list of who's going to be upgraded and indeed the pecking order in which you will be upgraded with your name at the gate. On holiday-rich routes like Hawaii, the list went on for about 40 people, and the anguish, joy, and indeed sheer out-and-out begging were a wonder to behold at the gate. No wonder people up front were celebrating.
Don't forget to check your seatback pocket and area around your seat to make sure you have all your belongings and be careful when you
Anyway, there we have it. A decent way of getting to the island state in a decent seat, even if it wasn't quite Polaris as we know it. United Airlines is bringing some of its biggest jets and its business class seats to the competitive US transcontinental and to the island route. That follows the transcon turf war over the past few years, which has seen a series of increases in domestic US in-flight quality. Goodness knows it needed. Of course, taking pride of place is the Boeing 777-300 ER Series Polaris business class seat. It's been a great joy to have had it for a 5-hour domestic hop. The downside is United remains United. The lounges are identical to what you may have experienced 20 years ago, with the exception that the food, in some cases, it's had a bit of a downgrade. On board Polaris, the soft product is inching to what we might expect from a quality airline, but it somehow quite isn't there yet. However, I was surprised by the food, which was much better than I expected. So, on the whole, it's actually a great way of getting to Honolulu, and I was quite pleased I flew with United.